More than 12,500 people have fled the Damascus suburb of eastern Ghouta as the Syrian regime continues to advance on the rebel-held enclave. That's according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It's the biggest number of people to escape the province since the regime offensive began. On Wednesday, the regime forces entered the town of Hamouria, where 26 people were killed. More than 1,200 people have died since the latest assault began in mid-February. Well, Ahmed Al-Burai joins us now from the Turkey-Syria border town of Kilis. So first of all, we're hearing reports about a mass exodus of people out of that area. Where are they going and what are you hearing, Ahmed?
Well, indeed, Shuli, what we're hearing from the ground in eastern Ghouta, that this is the biggest exodus of refugees moving from Hamouria town on the southern part of the province to the territories held by the Syrian regime. And as you alluded in the intro, that this is the biggest influx of refugees to evacuate the Ghouta due to the ongoing fierce bombardment to the regime territory. And according to the activists on the ground, it seems that Hamouria is done and the regime is taking control of this whole town. And it's to put more perspective to the people watching us. The regime has managed to cut the eastern Ghouta into three parts in order to force the rebel groups, Jaish al-Islam and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, along with Faylaq al-Rahman, who are fighting on the ground, to force them to take down their weapons and start to surrender. But it seems that the activists are saying there is some pockets inside this town still fighting. This we've been hearing in the last few hours. But the people we've had the chance to talk to, some of the activists, are evacuating the whole region, moving to the territories of the regime because they have no other outlets due to the ongoing bombardment, Julie.
So how significant is this advance in Hamouria, Ahmed, and what does it mean for the Syrian regime operation as a whole in eastern Ghouta?
It means simply that the regime is unequivocally adamant to go ahead with the operation and take control of this pocket on the capital side, which is the eastern Ghouta. The regime, with the Russian air forces in the north of the province, are managing to impose more sanctions on these groups. They're trying to put some negotiation terms with Jaish al-Islam in particular to evacuate some of the civilians there. But the regime on the southern part is going ahead with a fierce bombardment and shelling of these rebel groups. And the people who are still inside the enclave, the eastern Ghouta, more than 400,000 people who are still suffering the lack of everything, in addition to these kind of conflicts or the war that is still ongoing and killing many of them. Just on Wednesday, 26 people were killed. And it's expected that this is going to go ahead when taking into account that the regime did not back down after the UN Security Council resolution, after the ceasefire, even after Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the group that they accuse of being the affiliates of Al-Qaeda, did evacuate the whole region, and now it's only Faylaq al-Rahman and Jaish al-Islam. But they want them to change that, bring back the scenario of the demographic change that many of the activists on the ground are speaking about, and the regime is going ahead with this scenario, according to these activists.
Our opposition forces say that they're continuing to resist. So does that mean that there is still no end to the fighting in sight for the remaining civilians?
Well, the excessive use of a force on the ground surely does say that whether in a month it's a matter of time that the eastern Ghouta will fall in the hand of the Assad regime. Now, some of these rebel groups, they say that they have the capability to fight the Assad regime and the Russian Air Force, but on the ground the calculus is completely different. The people are desperate. This is like the biggest influx of refugees moving to the Assad regime territories, which is a precedent that didn't happen since the 2013 because of the ongoing attacks. And, you know, these kind of atrocities did not or was not halted by the efforts of the international community that seems to be incapable of doing anything and busy with different things happening in UK and with the NATO, in Russia and with the United States. So Eastern Ghouta feels that they're completely alienated and it's out of the calculus of these international powers. They cannot do anything to them. And at the end of the day, these rebels would not be able to face the ongoing assaults with the heavy bombardment from the Russian Air Force, along with the regime who seems to be very adamant to go ahead with the operation and take it down.
Ahmed, thank you. Ahmed Al-Barai in Kilis there.